Welcome to the Draft and Stash, your one-stop shop for NBA news, but more importantly, all of your Memphis Grizzlies news. As always, I'm Andrew, joined by the numbers guy, Frank.
Happy to be here.
So how are we doing, man? Are we excited for the home opener coming up?
I am. I'm super stoked for this upcoming season, man. I think our young players have a lot of potential. I'm ready to see it unfold.
It's really unfortunate that this is the first time that I think we've had one of the youngest, hottest teams, and we can't go to the games. It's like super, super unfair.
Yeah.
I finally feel like we're that Warriors team, that Thunder team, and it's like, yeah, it's cool, but you can't actually go see them live or anything.
We'll have to settle for television.
Yeah. On this week's show, we'll be diving into the rosters for training camp with the Grizzlies and what you can expect out of your team heading into the season. But before we get there, we have to hit some NBA talk on the block. This week, we got a big name trade that sounds bigger than it actually is. It's with Russell Westbrook being traded for John Wall and a pick. Frank, does this matter for either team, and should we care?
You know, I think you could make a case for both teams as to why this trade makes some sense. I think it makes a little bit more sense for the Wizards, obviously.
Yeah,
but, what do you think? How is Wall going to fit in there with the Wizards?
It's really weird. It's like John Wall hasn't played real basketball in like 3 years, I think, at this point. And he's coming off all these injuries. And it's like, I think like an Achilles injury, right? So, which is super brutal. And then he's already, 31 at this point?
Yeah,
and
he is.
From a player that needs his athleticism and his speed to really be effective, I don't know how he's going to look. It's the same thing with Kevin Durant. Like he had a really bad injury, and he even talked about that he had to relearn how to walk and shoot and everything else. I mean, I can only imagine, getting old and having like a really bad injury. So, but from the Wizards' perspective, I think this is a home run, man. I mean, because at worst, they make the playoffs. At best, they're like a top 4 seed probably. I mean, like if him and Russ actually gel, they could be very dangerous going forward.
That's very true. He immediately comes in. He energizes their offense. He controls possessions. He's historically better when his usage rate is high. I think they'll be exciting, man. Honestly, I do. For the Rockets, I think it makes some sense. Wall is a better catch and shoot guy than Westbrook ever was. I think that'll be a better fit there. But less pick and roll opportunities for John Wall is never really a good thing, I don't think. So,
I expect Russ to get back to himself. Another really big year, maybe his last dominant one. People like to point out his flaws, but they really forget to tell you what Russ does well, which is play basketball at a very high level. I think the Rockets are the big losers here. From a few years ago, they were knocking on the door to the finals, and now just 2 years later, their team is in shambles, and their fans are wondering what the hell happened. Everybody keeps pointing out that Russ and Bradley Beal both need the ball. I think that after Bradley Beal saw that him averaging almost 30 points a game netted in like 23 wins, I think he's willing to once again take a step back and let Russ play lead guard. I think at this point he understands that maybe dropping from 28 a game to like 22 a game makes them more effective overall, and it would let Russ really be this like dominant force again. He averaged like 27, 5 and 5 last year or something. And folks still hate on him. It's so crazy. I mean, I get it. He was very inefficient from 3, and that's the way that things are beginning to trend, but there's still something said about a player that is so dominant, and he's almost like a mini James. He just, so he doesn't shoot very well, but he's so effective in like other ways. I think that, being in the East, which is so weak, that they'll be, fine.
I think so too, man. But yeah, I think ultimately both wanted out of the situation they were in.
Everybody hates James.
Surroundings.
He's awful.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. That stuff, who cares? Moving into training camp, the Memphis Grizzlies are full of young talent led by a few budding superstars. On tonight's training camp breakdown, we're going to start with the guard rotation, and what better place to start than with the starting guard unit of Ja Morant and Dillon Brooks. We have keyed in on 3 areas for each player that we believe will be the difference between a year of progression versus a year of regression. Starting with Ja Morant, the reigning rookie of the year, it feels weird to criticize a player of Ja's caliber considering how well he played last year. But if he expects to grow as a player, he will need to improve on these 3 things. Number one, his shooting. At first glance, Ja's shooting doesn't seem alarming, but when you really look at it, there's a lot of room to improve. Going into the bubble, teams were looking to stop Ja from driving and force him to make a shot, which Ja wasn't really able to do, shooting a very anemic 26% from three, only hitting 12 of 46 shots. Ja will never be a killer from outside, but that doesn't mean he can't become a credible threat. I think the Grizz should maximize Ja's shooting in the areas where he actually was very successful, as opposed to him just taking a higher volume of shots. Ja averaged 33% from three last year, but his number was much higher on his corner three at 50%, and when he was assisted on to where he shot almost 55%. I think Ja is his natural road to improvement playing off the ball more, allowing others to set him up, which hopefully is where Justice Winslow comes in as a secondary ball handler and shot creator.
Yeah, I think Justice could be big for him there, especially since he's had experience playing point guard in Miami. You know, he's definitely had experience with the ball in his hands, making plays. So that'll take some pressure off Ja, maybe get some more open looks.
Not like that.
But I think
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just was going to say, I think despite the lack of volume and overall attempts per game, Ja's shooting numbers were pretty elite for a rookie point guard.
They were definitely higher caliber than we thought coming into the year. I think people thought his shot was completely broken because he didn't take this very high amount, of that shot in college. But when you're actually just twice as fast as everybody around you, it's easier just to do that all game than pop back and shoot threes. But I think going forward, having a good jumper will allow him to save a lot of energy as well. It takes so much energy playing basketball and driving hard as hell every single time in the paint, trying to dunk on people. So I think if his shot can come along a little bit, his legs will be much more viable in the fourth quarter. And
I think that leads pretty well into our next point about his strength.
Yeah,
I think if he adds core strength, lower body strength, and balance, that shot form might become a little bit more consistent, and we see that percentage tick up very slightly. And with a few more attempts per game, that could start looking really good. He might be seriously credible 3-point threat.
Talking about strength, it's not a shocker to anyone that Ja must gain strength if he wants to get better in this league. Ja came into the league around 160 pounds, but has since put on nearly 15 pounds of muscle. Gaining strength is vital for Ja in many areas, from his ability to finish at the rim, to fight through screens on defense, to not being abused by larger guards in the post. This will be a process, but one that Ja seems up for as he routinely hits the weight room trying to get where he knows he needs to be. Were you trying to say something? I'm sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to reiterate that starting weight he was at coming into the league. He was the third lightest in the league at the time coming in.
Which I think is amazing because Zion was his second heaviest coming into the league. So they're linked because their games are so polar opposites, It's like both of them use athleticism, but in totally different ways. Ja is this super quick, super athletic guy, hyper fast, but Zion is also really athletic, but just like a human mutant colossus. He just powers through people. It's incredible. And I think it's nuts that ESPN put out their top 100 players, and he's already at 19, and he's played 22 games. Has anybody done less to earn more, Frank, than Zion Williamson?
I don't know. I think the rivalry between our two young players is really stirring up something with you there. Zion's pretty special, but
he is. But I mean, they have guys games. Kyrie Irving behind him, and and I'm just I think at this current juncture, those players should be ahead of him. Only because Zion has shown in small spurts he can be special, but I think part of the problem is he's so strong that his body can't even keep up with that. I mean, he blew out a shoe in college, man. I mean, it's nuts.
I think that's a really valid concern that a lot of people have brought up. Yeah, it remains to be seen, but we'll see on that. But yeah, I think Ja, he understands how important it is to put on weight. Ja's smart. He knows the game. Yeah. He knows he can't stay at this, paltry 160, 170 he's at and, make it.
I think his ideal weight should be around 190. I think that'll keep him at his quickest. He'll also be able to I think it took Conley 5 seasons to hit 200 or something. So I mean the fact that he's only maybe 15 pounds away from being his ideal weight, I think is a really good sign. Moving on to his
skinny.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go start over.
You're good. Moving on to the third thing that I think that Ja needs to improve upon, which is smarter passing. Ja was electric in his rookie year, routinely making defenders look silly with his creative passing. But Ja also tended to get lost in his sauce as he would dribble into pressure or double teams and then attempt to make erratic passes to bail himself out, which more often than not turned into a really bad turnover. Going back into the bubble, Ja had 33 turnovers, including 8 in his final game, which was an overall increase-wise over his average of 3.3 a game in the season. This rise could have come from the added responsibility with Jaren Jackson Jr., Tyus Jones, and Justice Winslow all out with major injuries, leaving Ja as the only lead playmaker and scorer for the Grizzlies. As Ja gets older, he will have to read defenses faster as to not get caught in no man's land, usually in the air, as Ja has a habit of jumping and passing out of really strong double teams. Ja will have to learn as he needs to be the one causing havoc for the defense and not the one running into it at full speed.
Yeah, I think the key for Ja with his playmaking is finding a balance between those home run plays and the simpler, maybe more restrained play. Like every now and then you might just want to run a set. You know, you don't need to just like try to make the big explosive play every time.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a gift and a curse. He's so athletic and his ball handling is so tight that he probably views it as it's not a bad decision to try and take on people. And it's one of those things that he's going to learn over time, that everybody in this league is quick. Everybody in this league is strong. It's like everybody he goes. I mean, like if you watch back the games against De'Aaron Fox and Drew Holiday, they killed him. They kicked his ass, man. And so, and I know that he's probably looked at all that film multiple times in the summer, and he's really looking forward to those matchups. But it has showed that they were just as quick as he was, just as tall as he was, just as strong as he was, but also really good at like understanding ball handling and everything. So he's going to have to learn to use his teammates, I think, more like, effectively overall, and not just run into like in trouble over and over and over again.
Yeah, but he averaged what is it here? 7.3 a game, 8.5 per 36, which is again really elite for a rookie point guard. It was 10th in the league. So,
which I mean, actually, if you look at his numbers just in the bubble, he averaged I think like 20 and a half a game and like a little over 10 assists a game. Yeah, which I think that's probably what he's going to land on this year, is around 20 and 10, which is insane to think at like 20 years old, second year out of the league, he's already putting up numbers better than Conley ever did here, which is like incredible.
It's pretty crazy. And a lot of after winning Rookie of the Year, a lot of second-year players make that statistical leap. Somebody like Luka Doncic, Trae Young didn't win Rookie of the Year, but he went from being like an 18-point per game guy to a 30-point per game guy.
Yeah, so I don't think Ja takes a leap like that. I mean,
I don't either.
Atlanta didn't have anybody else besides Trae Young, so he had like full range to just take like 5,000 jumpers a game. And Luka was already like, I mean, folks never bring this up. He was a 6-year vet already, so he was already like very very versed in terms of like how to grow. This is Ja's first pro year, so it's going to take him a minute to really understand how to pick his spots and when to be strong, when to back off. So he's a little bit behind those guys right now, but I think probably year 3 or year 4, he's in the like top 10 category.
I'm going to say 21 and 8. That's my.
Okay. All right. Moving on from Ja to Dylan. Dylan has come a long way as a player, from a long shot round 2 pick to a starting caliber player in the league, but his weaknesses hold him back from taking that next step. First of 3 key areas is efficient scoring. There was an absurd stat last year with the Grizzlies winning every time that Dylan scored over 20 points. And at first, it sounds very positive until you really dive into it. Dylan shot around 15 shots a game, and quite simply, the games where he shot a reasonable percentage, the Grizzlies won. And the ones where Dylan shot poorly, the Grizzlies lost. Dylan has a tendency to try to take over games, and some nights it's needed, but most nights it was a hindrance to the offense overall. On assisted shots, Dylan's free ball was almost automatic at 89%. But when Dylan tried to create his own shot, his number was drastically lower. Once Dylan accepts his strengths in his game, he will really begin to flourish when he hits a more contained scoring role overall.
Yeah, I mean, he's a strong, broad-shouldered dude. He finishes well at the rim. I don't understand what his infatuation is with taking these terrible fadeaway, like 16-foot jumpers. It makes no sense, man.
It's not only that, man. Like he'll get on the break sometimes, and he gets just like tunnel vision. and like he'll miss guys in the corner running out, and he tries to take on like 2 and 3 guys. And you're like, what is he doing?
Yeah.
It's almost like Tony Allen again. It's like, please stop, please, Jesus, man.
Yeah.
But then like every once in a while he'll hit like a really stupid layup, and you're just like, okay, like it's weird. It's very, very strange.
His finishing is decent. Like, I mean, at 53% from 0 to 3 feet, so around the rim, that's like not bad. I think that's about league average. You know, it does not get better the further you go out, though. About 44% on twos overall. From 3 to 10 feet, he's 38%. So when Dylan either takes a 3 off an assist, or he takes that assist and drives it to the hole, he's really, really good. Like he's got some good numbers there. Yeah. It's when he kind of stops, he picks up his dribble, maybe tries to make that extra pass, he gets that turnover, he pulls up, he hits that really clunky, misses the shot badly. So I think playing within himself is a big key for Dylan. And I think in a reduced role, we could see a more efficient Dillon Brooks.
Definitely. The number 2 key area for Dillon Brooks is foul trouble. Surprisingly, Dillon Brooks led the league in fouls last season. And if you watch him play defense, you can understand why. Dillon's greatest strength is also his greatest weakness, which is his intensity. I will always say I'd rather have to tell a player to calm down than rather have to tell them to turn it up. Dillon Brooks is a fiery competitor in every sense of the word and wants to win every possession, every game, all the time. And unfortunately, that gets him into trouble on defense. Dillon has been tasked with guarding the opposing team's best wings for the last few years, a challenge he loves but also loses on most nights. Dillon does not have the respect of the officials and is called on a high level of ticky-tacky fouls. With Justice Winslow coming in, hopefully Dillon can slide over to the weaker of the 2 wing players and will allow him to turn it down on defense to a certain degree and gets less whistles. Either way, Dillon needs to learn to pick his battles and understand that he cannot win them all.
Yeah, I mean, the team is definitely dealing Dillon like a tough hand here by putting him on the best player on every other team, because Dillon is, he's an admirable defender, but an elite defender, I would not put him in that category yet. So to see him out there guarding LeBron, you kind of have to feel for the guy.
Yeah, I tell you, Matt, it's really upsetting because when we were going into the bubble, I was really excited to be adding Justice Winslow, and I was like, man, like us versus these teams, like having Jaren out there, Justice out there, Dillon and Melton, like. We're going to have some lockdown dudes, man. And then they all got hurt. It was like, okay, I guess we have nobody. Because at times, like, Jonas is pretty bad on defense. And it's not that he doesn't try. He's just so slow of foot. He gets abused.
He's a little sluggish.
Like if he has to move beyond 10 feet, he's getting beat. It just doesn't matter.
God forbid he gets caught in a pick and roll switch.
Yeah. So that's why, like, in the future, it looks like, once Jaren Jackson slides to the center, Brandon Clark slides to the 4, you're going to have some really smart athletes. I mean, imagine Jaren, Brandon, Justice, and Melton playing together. It's going to be insane. Like it's going to be great.
Yeah.
So I mean, like you're hoping that if Dillon can play, McCullough over Dame or something, or if he can play like KCP over James. For one, he'll pick up less fouls. Secondly, he'll be able to be on the court longer, and maybe that'll help him not take terrible shots all the time.
Legs on offense.
Yeah, so I mean, because there's a certain mindset that once you're in foul trouble and your minutes get restricted, you tend to take worse shots because you're not sure how long you're. So it's I don't know. So I mean, I hate it because I agree he's not a bad defender. But he's just not that guy. He's not Tony Allen. Hopefully Melton and Justice are those dudes. But Justice is made of glass and Melton can't hit a jumper. So.
Yeah, and perhaps someone else can help him with the defensive load. A young rookie named Desmond Bane. I think those arms could defend just about anybody in the league.
I can't wait for him and Zion to fucking lock horns, man. Oh my God,
seriously,
it's gonna be nuts. I thought it was the third and last key feature for Dillon Brooks is an ego check. Dillon is the most tenured Grizzly and was given free reign before John Jaren, and he still believes he is the best option on the team. This is obvious in his terrible decision-making. The team works best when the ball is moving side to side and no player is taking every shot. Unfortunately, Dillon routinely gets caught up in personal matchups and tries to shoot every shot that comes his way. Dillon must learn that he is not the big dog on the team, Hell, he's not even the second big dog. Once Dillon accepts his own limitations and takes a role behind Ja and Jaren, he will excel in his role as a secondary scorer that draws attention away from Ja. But until then, Dillon will continue to shoot the Grizzlies out of games.
Yeah, I really do think reducing his minutes per game could be a big key here, because Dillon is going to take shots. I'm sure Taylor Jenkins even encourages him. When he has the ball, he takes shots. So I think what Dillon's role really should wind up being this season is, let's see, he averaged 28.9 minutes per game last season. If we can get that down to 20 to 25, let's say, somewhere in there, I think that would be a little bit better for Dillon. He might start taking a little bit more efficient shots with that limited time he's being given. And with the reduced role, he won't be guarding LeBron James for 28 minutes in there.
Not only that, he might be better off the bench. Like if they just put him on the bench and maybe start melting over him or somebody, and tell him, look, on the second unit, it's all you, free reign, almost like a Jamal Crawford style role.
Yeah,
he might flourish in that, as opposed to feeling the need to calm down his game. I just think that if he wants to continue to play with those guys in the starting unit, he really needs to understand that he's not first and he's not second. So.
He's too inefficient to be that guy. The Grizzlies' offense got bogged down at times last season, as it historically has for whatever reason, even without this roster. But a lot of that had to do with Dillon Brooks just repeatedly taking shots that he had no business taking. They were momentum kind of swinging shots for the other team, honestly. So I think once he starts taking shots a little bit more within the offense, within himself, with the flow, it'll be a big improvement there.
Not only that, I think on all of our minds when we're talking about the foul trouble is the terrible jump foul that he got at the end of that damn Spurs game against DeMar DeRozan, who everybody saw that damn pump fake. I mean, like he's been doing that for like 10 years now. I don't know how Dillon
he did the same thing against Damian Lillard in the bubble, man.
But the Spurs game hurt because it was right after Jaren's insane corner three. You're like, oh my God,
we really need
to get back into this, and then he just ruins it because that's just who he was. Moving on from the starters to the bench mob, the guard rotation off the bench that we know for sure is Tyus Jones, DeAnthony Melton, and Grayson Allen. Their progression versus regression depends on three things as well. The first note is establishing roles. Most of last season was spent trying to figure out which players fit where. And once the Grizzlies got their roles down, the team really took off. It's a new year, and even though there's established chemistry already, the team will still have to look to see who works with who and in what capacity. Tyus looks to be solidified as the backup point guard and was solely missed in the bubble, as Ja had to play at a much higher capacity. Melton looks to be a bench defensive specialist that Taylor Jenkins can deploy as a way to slow down opposing wings. Melton unfortunately took a step back in the bubble as his offense was so poor he was barely able to hit the court. With his new contract in hand, he must grow as a shooter if he wants to stay on the court long enough to be a factor. Grayson Allen, or the Bubble Boy, looked great in Orlando as his shot finally came alive. Grayson hit at a nearly 50% clip from 3 over 6 attempts per game, all the while playing good enough defense and playmaking to be useful all over the court. Going into year 2, all three guards must be ready to accept reduced roles, with Ja most likely garnering more minutes and with Justice Winslow now in the mix. Whichever of these three can nail down their roles first will most likely get the first crack at minutes off the bench.
Yeah, so I think starting with Tyus here, because I think he's the most obvious candidate for the backup point guard role. I mean, he's the candidate, honestly. So he'll definitely get some regular minutes in the rotation. We're very lucky to have a guy like Tyus as our backup point guard. He's a very low assist to turnover ratio. He's honestly one of the better backup point guards in the league.
Definitely.
He kind of comes in and acts as that steady hand. If the offense, like I said, is getting a little bogged down, Taylor seems to take that as a hint to bring in the bench squad starring Tyus as our captain. He gets the offense going with some sets and things get back to normal. But, the other guys, I think Grayson definitely has a chance to do something big there. And, I'd like to see what he can do. His shooting in the bubble was ridiculous.
It was really good. And it's just you're not sure if he finally turned the corner on that or if it was it was like a sample size, because it was these perfect conditions where there's no fans. It's the same gym over and over again. So, I mean, I think almost every quote that I saw was every guy there who was a shooter said this is like a great great situation for like NBA shooters because, it's just how like the screens were and the goals were and stuff and everything. So hopefully he can bottle some of that, like, and bring it with him. Because like he has a lot of like really good key factors, which is like, he tries hard on defense. He can ball handle a little bit, pass a little bit. He's got okay size at 6'4", and he's sneaky athletic. Like, he'll toss down a dunk on somebody out of like nowhere. And then his shot has that like heat up style moment to it where if he hits a couple, then like it really starts working for him. But unfortunately, if his jumper's not going, then he doesn't really offer a whole lot that Melton can also do, which is Melton is also around 6'4". He's more athletic. He's much better on defense. He's a pretty good finisher. He's a better athlete, but his jump shot is much worse. So, that kind of like really was shown in the bubble where he just couldn't hit a jump shot at all. It was just really awful.
It was hard for him to stay in games, even with his excellent defense, just because of his broken jump shot. And, he shot 40% overall in the season, not like, not trash, but it's not something you want to see improvement there.
Yeah, it's 40%, which is most of those are at the rim probably or whatever as well.
I was going to say he doesn't take a lot of jump shots.
Exactly. So he's really going to have to like, take that next step. Yeah. Moving on from established roles. The number 2 key factor is growth. All 3 players still have potential to grow into role players or near starter level talents. The Grizzlies will have to decide early who they value the most as minutes are limited and opportunities to establish a rapport with the future stars will be hard to come by. My money's on Melton going forward. The Grizzlies made a financial commitment to DeAnthony in the offseason with a new contract, and that must be a good boost of confidence for the young guard. Tyus is a current factor, but not necessarily a future one. Grayson has the most useful skill of the 3, shooting, but will need to bring more to the table than that if he wants to get a new valuable deal and a permanent spot going forward. Where do you view potential growth between like all these guys?
Well, starting with Grayson, he's in his 3rd year. Honestly, I had to look that up. I thought it seems like the dude's been in the NBA for longer than that. I guess just because of his Duke career.
Well, so like he was like a 3rd-year player at a Duke.
That's right, and it seems weird that because he's been injured so often in the NBA, we haven't actually seen him play a ton. But yeah, he's in his 3rd year. He hasn't gotten a lot of time on the court, so I think there's a lot of potential for growth there.
Totally.
Especially if he can grow into that role as a shooter, like we've been saying, that would be huge for us. We just need all that we can get.
Yeah, I think, after seeing the Heat, be awesome. Like, we're all hoping that he can turn into like a Duncan Robinson type or something, that can just be like a straight, just like a hot gunner out there. But, Duncan looks like the type of guy that understands how to sit like in his role. And Grayson maybe thinks he's better than that, which could be like an issue.
I would like to see more than just shooting, though, from Grayson. I would like to see a little bit more playmaking and defending, and plus defending from him. Because he's shown at times he can be both of those things. So
yeah, I mean, like more often than not on defense, he kind of gets like overmatched because he's not very big and he's not very strong. So like, and then his lateral quickness is not great. So a lot of times he'll get beat off the dribble, and then like if he's like foul behind or something or whatever. But I agree. I mean. With defense, half of it is just like effort. And he is doing that, which will keep him on the court. But I agree, like, his playmaking at times also looks good, but his ball handling's not quite great enough.
A little shaky.
Yeah, and his passing's not bad, but he'll do what Ja does, like, and get like in like trouble, but Ja has eyes in like the back of his head, and so he can toss passes anywhere. While Grayson he'll drive in, get trapped in the post, and then he's trying to like toss it out and stuff, whatever. So it's a little different.
Taylor Jenkins.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The last key factor for the bench mob is value. Odds are not all 3 players will be with the team by next season, so it's always good to know what value your players hold across the league. Tyus has shown great backup guard skills as he's readily available to run a team. Melton has defensive talents that are hard to come by, and any contender could value those. And his new contract is also very movable. Grayson is solid at a lot of things, but not great. His shot must get to near elite levels if he's going to have a much longer career. The Grizz could get maybe a late first-round pick from a team looking to add more stuff like a bench piece. if they decided to move on from Grayson. I think that like, his age is not that bad. And a certain team, that is maybe near that, like, 3 or 4 spot, like in the West or the East, could need like an extra guard piece or something. I think, Grayson could be movable. I don't know if he's like a future piece here, but he does have value.
I agree. I agree he has value. Whether or not he's more valuable to us or another team, I think that's what's debatable. I think at this point, we might just want to hold on to Grayson, see what he develops into.
Yeah.
Because I don't think the trade market for Grayson would be that hot, honestly.
Unless he just like really comes out the gate and is just like really looking good or something.
Exactly. But
and if
at
that's
that
the
point,
case, then that they would just keep him. It's like,
right. We're a young team. We keep the young guy that's hot. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, that's a good thing. That's nothing but a good thing, because then we have the two sides here. If he's good, we get to see him develop. We have him on our roster. If we decide to move on from him, he does have enough value where we could get something for him. So
yeah, I mean, especially from a team like the Pelicans have got like 20 picks, or the Thunder that have like 20 picks.
Somebody would have a pick for us.
Exactly.
It would probably be a late first round or maybe a early second round, but somebody would have a package for Grayson, I'm sure.
Definitely. With preseason coming up, I'm hoping to see some of these key areas addressed. We will be talking about those games and more training camp roster breakdowns, including the forwards and the centers, and we'll be talking about roster hopefuls. So don't worry about Desmond Bain here, guys. We will be talking about him and Tillman and Tilly and all those guys later on. We just don't know exactly where they fit yet. So we're hoping that with the preseason, we'll get a more defined answer in terms of where their role is, but we will have a video on them as well. We put out weekly videos on the NBA and the Memphis Grizzlies, so be sure to subscribe and like if you want to know more, or if you're just wanting more awesome content. Thank you so much for watching. Frank, any last words for the few fans here? I don't know.
I just want to say I'm excited to be doing the show with you, Andrew. Thanks for inviting me on, man. I love talking about the Grizzlies. If I can do that for other people and make them happy, then
also, there is a third man on our 3-man team. Chip Williams will be joining us next week. He will be doing our draft breakdowns. So look forward to next week. He'll be doing an entire prospect breakdown of Cade Cunningham, who is the potential #1 pick in the draft. I personally don't like him. He looks like an Evan Turner 2.0 to me, which is a solid role player, but I wouldn't waste a top 5 pick on him. I think he's a little too slow for me personally. But Josh Christopher, that dude's a beast. He's going to be good. All right, guys. Until next time, let's go Grizzlies.
Let's go Grizz. Yes, sir.